What's up, all you beautiful people? Welcome to another video. So about 10 years ago in 2016, my buddy Ryan, he comes to me. He has this little manufacturing business producing these little polyurethane rock climbing holds for like commercial climbing facilities. So if you've ever been to a climbing gym, you've probably climbed on these holds, right? At the time, this was a really small business. It was doing maybe $300,000 a year, handful of employees. And he came to me because I had just built and sold a couple businesses. And he asked me to help him, like, come on board and let's take this thing to the next level. And so we did exactly that. And over the next 3 years, we took that business from doing $300,000 of top line revenue to $3 million with about 40% margins and running about a team of 25 and becoming, in the process, one of the largest manufacturers of rock climbing holds in the United States. So what I want to share in this video specifically are 6 different constraints that we had to solve on that journey of 10xing the business over the course of 3 years. Now, if you're not familiar, like the theory of constraints, I think is one of the most powerful business frameworks. I first read about it in this book called The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt. It is fantastic. I highly recommend you read that book. But really what the theory of constraints says is that at any given moment, there is a singular constraint within your business that if you were to unlock that, everything else would flow and increase the throughput. Now, the problem that we often find ourselves in is we have multiple constraints. We can see all these different areas of our business that are constrained. And so we go about solving all of these things. But the problem is that there's only one constraint that is constraining all the other constraints. And so it's either the smallest constraint or it's the constraint that's at the front of the funnel, right? And so if we solve these things out of order, or if we try to solve them all at the same time, then what ends up happening is you spin your wheels, you do a lot of work, but you don't actually increase the throughput until you finally crack that one constraint that mattered the most. And so what we found at Escape was, let's clearly identify what is the most important constraint at any given moment and focus all our energy on that and forget all the other constraints until that's solved. And what we discovered is that sequence equals speed. When you do that in the right order, first of all, it's a lot easier. You're not burning you're like the midnight candle because you're not trying to solve 12 different things at the same time. You're solving one problem at a time, and then you're identifying the next problem. And so I want to give you the 6 constraints that you're probably going to have to identify and remove at some point within your business. So let's dive right in. The first one is the clarity constraint. So this usually occurs because you're not crystal clear about who it is you're actually serving. And because you're not clear about who you're serving, your messaging is diluted and it's not attracting them or converting them to the degree that you would like. What we ran into with Escape is that in the beginning, there was this small little hole in the wall operation, right? Like doing $300,000 a year isn't crazy numbers by any means. And we were producing the polyurethane ourselves. So we weren't like this professional rig. And we were selling all of these holds to home buyers on Amazon predominantly. So people that wanted to build a rock climbing gym in their backyard, right? Well, you're not going to be able to scale 10x in 3 years to that demographic. There's just not enough demand there. So we needed to expand into the commercial vertical, which included climbing facilities, right? But our messaging up to that point was geared towards the home wall users, not commercial facilities. So we had this big uphill battle whenever we'd go to a climbing gym and say, hey, you should buy our holds because they're cheaper, because you have more variety, like more personalization if you want to get different color schemes that are fun and unique for your kids. Like that's not the stuff that the commercial gyms even cared about. And so our pitch to them had to shift, our messaging had to shift. And until we did that, until we started positioning the brand not just as a mom and pop operation, but as an actual like prestige producer and manufacturer of climbing holds in the industry, that's when we started like really taking off, because we opened up this whole new market, not just nationally, but also internationally. And that's a whole different thing. But once you get clear about who it is you're speaking to, like, and the more specific that you can be, like the better, because take this as an example. Like if you were, let's say a business owner, you're doing $200,000 a year, right? And you're at maybe 10% margin. So at the end of each year, you're making $20,000 of profit, right? Okay. So if you were looking for a tax advisor and you landed on a page and that tax advisor's page said, we will save you money on your taxes, versus if you landed on somebody else's page that said, hey, if you're a 6-figure entrepreneur that is only pulling in 5 figures a year of profit, then we can double that in the next 12 months. You'd be like, oh, okay, they really seem to really specifically understand my unique problem, right? And you're more likely to go with that person than you are to this other vague, I can help you make more money, right? It's the same with whatever business, whatever service, whatever product you're trying to sell. Get crystal clear about who it is you're actually trying to sell to. So that's constraint number one. Constraint number two is the content constraint. So one of my favorite quotes is, you can't save souls in an empty church, right? The biggest problem that most businesses have is one of obscurity. You're dying in obscurity. Nobody knows who you are. They don't know you have a product or service that can serve them. And so if they don't know you exist and they don't know that you have a product that can help them, they're not going to do business with you. And so what we did at that point, we were running ads like on Google search, we were using a little bit of Facebook ads, but what was clear is that we didn't have a reliable system for bringing in organic leads. And so what ends up happening is, because you're over reliant on paid advertising, that only ever increases in cost. Like, ads are not getting any cheaper ever. Like, they're only ever going to get more expensive, which means your cost per customer acquisition is only going to keep climbing. So you need to have some kind of organic mechanism to offset that. And so we started getting really involved on Instagram, started getting really involved on YouTube. Instagram for the purposes of raising awareness, like putting out content that would captivate people's their attention and make them go, oh, escape climbing, look at these guys, I want to go check them out, right? And then they go over to the YouTube channel, they'd go deeper into the content, and that would send them over to the website, where then they would go onto their buying journey, right? But once we solved that, we saw our cost of acquisition come down consistently to the point where we stopped running ads. Like, this is the crazy thing. We were doing about 300 to 500,000 off the back of ads. And then from 500,000 to 2 million, we turned off the ads. We didn't run any ads. It was all organic and off of referrals at that point. Like, we didn't start turning ads back on until we cracked over $2 million a year. So that just shows, like, and that's a better way to build the business rather than with having to rely on ads, because again, that's like, it's only ever going to get more expensive. So the content constraint, and this is a big one, I think, for 90% of businesses that do not have a reliable system for bringing in leads. So if you're ever finding yourself like in this feast or famine cycle, or overly reliant on referrals for your business to grow, then you definitely need to take a look at your organic content machine. Otherwise, you're just going to like hate your life. I guarantee it. So that's constraint number two. Constraint number three is the conversion constraint. This occurs when you have enough leads, you have people landing on the page, but they're just not buying, or they're on the sales call, but they're just not coming through, right? One of the things that we found for us, and like in our industry for climbing, the way that facilities, big commercial climbing gyms would order holds is through this thing called wholesale, right? So instead of charging them retail prices, because they're typically buying $50 to $100 to $150,000 worth of holds at a time, you give them a little discount, right? So the way that they buy this then is in the climbing industry, like this is getting really deep in the weeds, but like they use this really archaic system of spreadsheets. So each one of the climbing hold manufacturers just sends you a spreadsheet with all these color grids, because you can choose 15 different colors for 100 different holds. It's freaking convoluted as hell. It's like, genuinely, if I showed you this thing, your mind would blow right now. And so I stepped in and I was like, okay, so we expect people to buy. How? I can't even figure out this spreadsheet. It gives me a seizure when I look at it. It's absolutely horrendous. So we sat down with this technology firm out of Chicago, and we developed a whole new interface for our climbing gyms to use to get their wholesale and to be able to order things in bulk really quickly and easily. We did it all through a web application that just allowed them to log in, put in exactly what you want, put the push send, push checkout, right? And then it goes directly to our manufacturing team. Now, before, it was a spreadsheet that our shipping manager had to manually process. She had to manually look at all these hundreds and thousands of rows, find the dots that they had clicked, and then manually put that into the production cycle. It was freaking ludicrous. It's so complicated, but like, this is the problem that I think a lot of businesses run into, is that you make it too difficult for your customers to actually buy from you. If I go to your Instagram and case in point, the other day, I told the story the other day to somebody, like this person is producing great content, caught my attention. I was like, this is great. I want to work with this person. Went to their Instagram page, no links. Searched for them on Google, went to their website, still no links, no product, I couldn't figure out how to actually work with this person. I DM'd them. I said, hey, your stuff's great. What would it look like to work together? They never even responded. Like, they're making it so, I'm over here with like a handful of cash I'm trying to throw at their face, and they're making it really hard. And so like, that is most businesses. And that was us at Escape with the Wholesale Sheet. So that's potentially your third constraint, which is your conversion constraint. Make it easy for people to give you money, and you will make more money. All right, number 4. This is the capacity constraint. This occurs when you don't have the ability to fulfill at the levels that you've generated the demand for. This could be if you're doing, say, under $300,000 a year, because you as the founder are the constraint. You're doing all the fulfillment and you only have so many hours in the day, so you can't scale beyond that. That's one very real way. For us at Escape, because we're a manufacturing facility, there's so many instances where, because we're working on like a conveyor belt system of production, you can quickly look and say, okay, which part of that conveyor belt of production is slowing us down, right? It doesn't matter if you have the ability to produce $100,000 of holds in a day, if you don't have the ability to ship $100,000 a day because you don't have enough shipping team, you don't have enough shipping supplies, or the communication system between production and shipping is insufficient, right? So like you can quickly identify where is the capacity constraint. But once you do, everything starts to unlock. And so if you right now either don't have a team, then you definitely have a capacity constraint. Or if you're constantly babysitting your team, again, big capacity constraint. And you know when this is the case because you're teetering pretty damn close on the brink of burnout. Like you're getting to the point where you're like, this is not sustainable anymore. Now, here's the other thing though on that is that capacity constraints are actually a good thing in the sense that it means you have demand. Huzzah! So like if you could fix that, it means whenever you have a capacity constraint, it usually means if you could unlock that one thing, you're sitting on the other side of a 2x doubling within the next 12 months. Because if you can relieve that constraint, then you can fire up your lead generation machine, whatever that is, because it's already working. You already have more demand than you need. So like solve that thing and things get really good really quickly. On a side note there too, by the way, if you never solve that problem of the constraints as a business owner, then you would never actually have a business. You're a hobbyist. You have a job working for a crazy person, because you can't ever take time off from the business. Otherwise it just stops. And that's not any kind of business you want to run. All right. Constraint number 5. This is the capital constraint. This is what happens when you just don't have enough money to reinvest, whether that's investing in teammates or into software, or into tech solutions, whatever, right? Let's take the example of hiring. A lot of times with the founders that I work with, they have this limiting belief that they're not ready to hire because they don't have enough money to do it, right? Like, and hiring is scary, especially if you hire an A player, because they're expensive. They're going to cost you more than maybe you have in that moment. So like, if you're looking on the barrel and you're like, oh, this person's going to cost me $200,000 a year. It's like, okay, a couple things here. First, $200,000 a year is not what you need to come out of pocket next month for. You need to come up with 200,000 divided by 12, right? That's the monthly salary. And so what you really need to be asking yourself is, can I pay that portion? Can we make enough each month to pay that portion of the salary? That's number 1. Number 2 is to ask yourself, what is the opportunity cost of not having that person? Because a lot of times a person, let's say that you're bringing in for $200,000, they're going to make you 10 times more. Right. And so it's not a question of like, how much is it going to cost you? It's going to be, how much is it going to cost you to not have this? And that mindset shift, I think, is really critical. That was one that we really struggled with at Escape for sure. We had this kid come in. His name was Chase. I've told this story before a couple of times. Great guy. He came in, we were offering $70,000 for like a production engineer job. And he turned us down because he didn't want to do that job. But in that meeting, I was like, this guy's so phenomenal. Like, we need him. We need this guy in our business. So we went back to him. I said, you name your price, you name your position. Like, tell us what you want to do in the company. We just know you're a rock star. We'll build a company around you, right? So we get him for way, way, way more than we were ever comfortable paying. Like, we were like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, this seems like a really bad idea. Fast forward, it's been 10 years. He's now like running the company and he's like doing a fantastic job. So like one of the best investments we ever made. But you can't do that if you don't have the capital. So like if you're not managing the cash flow systems, your financial backends, if you're not doing all of that stuff and you don't actually have the money to invest, then that's a really shitty feeling too, because you can just see all the opportunities that are dying on the vine right in front of you. And so you need to solve those backend systems. Number 6, the last constraint I want to share with you, and I think this is probably the most common constraint for founders, regardless of what type of business or size of business. It's the courage constraint. It's actually, you're just a wuss. Like, you're just scared. You're just afraid to do the things that you know you should do. You are, you're afraid to have a hard conversation with the person that they need to find a new job, right? They're not just a bad fit. Or you need to have that conversation with a vendor and renegotiate a contract because it's just not working. Or you need to actually go to your biggest customer, Case in point, at Escape, we fired our largest customer. They were bringing in a couple $100,000 a year. They're a big distributor in a foreign country, and they were just so difficult to work with, and they were causing so much internal stress and friction for our team that we made a decision just to fire them. And it was terrifying because at that point they represented like 30% of our total revenue. And so firing that and saying we don't want your money anymore, it was really terrifying because we had the infrastructure, the team that still needed to have that money to like meet payroll and stuff. But we made that decision, and within 6 months we'd replace that income and more because it freed up our team's bandwidth. It freed up our mental energies, and it made it more enjoyable to come to work every single day. And people that enjoy their work do better work. But that's a perfect example of like the constraint for the year before that was simply the fact that me and my partner, we were wusses. Like we weren't prepared to do the courageous thing and have the conversation to fire the customer, to fire the employee, to fire ourselves from positions that we were no longer suited to do. Like, and that right there, the courage constraint, there's probably something in your life, in your business that you know you're not doing because you're afraid to do it. You're playing small, and so you're being productively procrastinating. You're being a perfectionist. Like there's so many different ways that this manifests itself, but like what I have found is that every business has a primary constraint, and I've just given you 6 of them. But what you'll notice is that a lot of these, and the biggest ones, they revolve around you. Like you as the founder sitting in the way of the throughput. And that courage constraint, I'm telling you guys, if you can't solve that one, then it does not matter what else you do on the business. You will always be handicapping yourself. So take these 6 constraints. Let me know down in the chat, which one do you struggle with? I have a solution to each and every single one of them. I'll send you a resource that will help you deconstrain, eliminate that, unlock tons of flow inside of your business. And that's all I got. I'll see you guys in the next episode.